I'm asking for a agreement from the committee. The Friends of Attawapiskat River, they'll be co-presenting, and I would ask for your support. Miigwech.
There is a request from MPP Mamakwa to add another person to the witnesses list. Is there a consent? There is, okay? None. So now we have 3 groups in this panel: Ecojustice Canada, Friends of Attawapiskat River, Vale Base Metals. So you have 7 minutes to make your presentation, and we will start with Ecojustice Canada. Please state your name and title.
Hello, I'm Laura Bowman, a staff lawyer with Ecojustice Canada. I want to thank the committee for allowing me to speak to you, and I'm grateful to visit to you from the territories of several First Nations, including the Wendat, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Chippewas, and the Mississaugas. I acknowledge my obligation to uphold the principles of sharing and sustainability embodied by the Dish with One Spoon Covenant and to end discriminatory and colonial practices. Ecojustice is Canada's largest environmental law charity with offices across Canada. We use the law to defend nature, combat the climate crisis, and fight for a healthy environment for all. I am delivering these comments today on behalf of Ecojustice and not any of our client organizations. I would like this committee to imagine a world without birds, a world without dragonflies, bees and butterflies, a world without bats and turtles. That is the direction we are already headed. We have already lost much of southern Ontario's forests, grasslands, wetlands, and clean, healthy cold water streams. There are steep declines in insect-eating birds, bats, fish, and other species. We are losing our shorebirds and grassland birds at a rapid rate. We are losing our butterflies and our flowers. Our northern environments are also under increasing pressure. We already are not doing enough, not even close to enough. The minister claims we have a world-class environmental protection in Ontario. I can only assume that this is a joke, and it isn't funny. Bill 5 would be catastrophic for biodiversity and will accelerate these declines. Extinction is forever. Most species are in decline due to significant habitat loss. Many have only a handful or fewer viable populations left. They need more habitat, not less, to survive and recover. Under this bill, harassing endangered species would be legal. Destroying most of their remaining habitat would be legal. This bill only regulates killing, harming, and the destruction of dwelling places and critical root zones. Under this bill, even these could be destroyed by filling out a form. Nothing in this bill ensures that decisions about species and their habitat will result in species conservation or survival, let alone full recovery. We know from decades of experience that discretionary provisions for protecting species don't work. There are so few regulated activities under this bill, under the new Species Conservation Act, that the enforcement powers are largely irrelevant. Is the Ontario you want an Ontario without caribou, sturgeons, monarchs, turtles, and piping plovers? Is that what Ontarians support? We say it is not. Schedules 2 and 10 of the bill must be repealed. I also want to speak to this committee about special economic zones. There is no detail set out in Schedule 9. It could be used for anything. It represents a shocking and unprecedented power grab by Cabinet to override provincial and municipal laws of any kind in any location in Ontario for any reason and with any scope. This bill contains no checks or balances of any kind, no purpose, no process, no limits. The minister told you on Thursday that the public would be consulted on the implementation of the bill. This bill does not include any public process, any public or First Nation consultation requirement. It is a blank slate allowing Cabinet to create lawless zones for trusted proponents and special projects in secret, using secret criteria. Nothing in Schedule 9 targets any specific impediments to mining. If this is about speeding up mining projects, there is no plan to do this spelled out in Schedule 9. The word mining isn't even in Schedule 9. It is simply an unprecedented and unconstitutional attack on responsible government that has been in place in Ontario since the 1840s. Henry VIII would be proud. The Family Compact would be proud. One committee member mentioned the Wild West with Schedule 9. I would agree with that, but we are actually hearkening back to a pre-Wild West regime with this bill, straight out of Trump's playbook, using obsolete executive power from the early 19th century. Ask yourself this: is Ontario industry incapable of playing by the most basic rules put in place for human rights, First Nations, and the environment? Is the only strategy for speeding up permits to go back to a 19th century form of government? To abandon the constitutional role of the elected legislature? To eliminate the regulatory framework that is essential to the exercise of First Nations rights? To use the playbook of dictatorships? What paucity of imagination has brought us here, where the economy is merely a pretext to undermine our most fundamental values of democracy and environmental protection, where species who cannot speak for themselves are scapegoated? Under this bill, there will be more Ontario places, Dresden dumps, and other scandals. We ask that you repeal Schedule 9.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I call upon the Attawapiskat River witnesses to start their deputation. Please state your name.
Wachek Maswe, Michel Koostachin, Disneyhasen, Oshkatpogo, Naskomo, Kshemando, Hote Bichitogusnian. Egoma Pogo, Ninstemi Bichikiskemuyan, Oma Kaibichimos Kahamek, Oma Onusion, Nianan Bill 5, Kanamochagatek. Today I'm here to remind you guys, with my presentation, I work for Creator, and I would like to remind you guys, this law violates our inherent sovereignty, treaty, Aboriginal rights, along with the UNTRIP. We have our own constitutions. We only get 4 laws from Creator. This law was prophesied that it's coming. We prophesied those mining giants are coming. The Beers came to our traditional territory. Your Ontario government took 14% royalties. And those royalties doesn't come from the Ontario government to our First Nation reserve. You guys say you're part of the Crown land, but you take our resources. We have terminologies for you guys in our Cree language. The people must understand also, the people of Ontario and our allies, that this bill is not, legal. This bill is illegal because your government is corrupt. Your Ontario BC government is corrupt. And this bill goes through, who's going to be responsible that you're contaminating, destroying our peatlands? I don't see you going to come and fix it. or your children? Who's going to fix it? So we are concerned as grassroots people. The Government of Canada has the fiduciary duty under our Treaty 9. This proposed bill is going to come to our traditional territory. We have the largest peatlands in Ontario and the Hudson Bay, James Bay lowlands. What if you guys want to disturb that? And what are you guys going to do to fix it? If your kids have trouble breathing. This is the second largest carbon sink in the world. We are concerned. I'm here to remind the people, to tell you guys also to stop the Bill 5. This bill is going to harm the future. We have prophecies, like I mentioned. I work for Creator, so I'm here to let you guys know that this land you're going after is going to destroy. Our women are the true leaders, our matriarchs. They're the true leaders in our traditional territory and our natural laws. We have to take direction from the woman. When those royalties your government took, we had negative socioeconomic impacts. Still today in Attawapiskat. I was born and raised in Attawapiskat. We're called the elders from other traditional territories. They call us the water people. We live by the river, surrounded by creeks, the swamp, that carbon sink, we call it mashkek. It acts as a filtration system before anything that flows through the river. So anything that's disturbed in our traditional territory is going to contaminate. There's studies, you guys have studies to say that anything that's going to be disturbed, there's always consequences. So Bill 5 is going to bring destruction. So we want to let you know, anything destruction, there's going to be devastation. Not only for me, but my children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. That's who they're going to face the environmental damages that this bill is being introduced. I wish you guys did that before with our housing, fast-track our housing. My mom died in the hospital under your healthcare system. The doctor didn't change his dressing for 1 month at your provincial hospital. The doctor got away with the malpractice. This is what's going to happen with this bill. There's going to be a lot of destruction. I worked De Beers. I was mistreated. I was discriminated.
1 minute.
Your companies, what they presented, we don't see those dollars. You don't see those partnerships. People had joint ventures, 49 to 51%. It didn't go to our people. It didn't go to our First Nations. So those are the concerns I want to remind you guys. This bill is going to have negative impacts to our traditional territory, Treaty 9. So that Treaty 9 is our environment. So the sections that are being proposed will destroy the land, our sacred artifacts. Those are there for a reason, to remind us we will practice our natural laws. We have our own constitution through our pipe.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
The time is up. Before we move to our third presenter witness, I kindly ask everyone to use parliamentary language during this debates and presentations. I call upon Vale Base Metals to start your testimony, and you have 7 minutes. Please state your name.
I am Jeff Golan. I'm the Vice President of Corporate Affairs for Vale Base Metals. Good afternoon. Bon après-midi. Minogi Jagad.
Good afternoon.
We at Vale Base Metals are an Ontario-based global supplier of nickel, copper, and cobalt, critical minerals that are transforming the world's future. The challenge for us all today is to find balance. The urgent global need for critical minerals, the need for Ontario to become more competitive, the need to maintain public confidence in the province's environmental protections, and the duty to consult Indigenous people. We believe the province needs to move urgently with regulatory efficiency, maintain public faith in environmental protection, respect the voice of Indigenous rights holders, and avoid investor uncertainty. Without these conditions, Ontario will not attract the necessary investment to create jobs, mine more minerals, or build lasting value for all Ontarians. It will not be easy to strike the balance, but the opportunity is not to be missed. At Vale Base Metals, we are stewards of industry-leading nickel and copper reserves in Canada, Brazil, and Indonesia. Our combination of geology and geography positions us to serve customers around the world, in Europe, in Asia, and in America, with a secure and responsible supply of high-quality minerals that go into electric vehicles, renewable energy, artificial intelligence, and defense technologies. We provide mineral security to a world in transition. And we do it from Ontario, where we employ more than 5,000 people here in our global head office in Toronto, at our cobalt refinery in Port Colborne, at our R&D lab in Mississauga, and of course, at our Sudbury operations, the mining capital of North America. We operate the only fully integrated mining complex on the continent, one where we explore, extract, refine, and supply manufacturers with finished products. And soon we will add mineral stockpiling and minerals recycling to serve future generations. Global demand for critical minerals is growing exponentially in a world where price and supply volatility are the norm. As the International Energy Agency has recently reported, demand for key minerals continues to grow strongly and is surging. Supply is increasingly concentrated in China, putting downward pressure on prices, especially for Ontario-based battery minerals such as graphite, cobalt, and nickel. Investment decisions on mining projects face significant market and regulatory uncertainty, and the threat of export restrictions is on the rise, and the risk of security of supply is proliferating. In short, the world is weaponizing critical minerals. So a secure and responsible supply of critical minerals is fundamental for the generational shifts that are transforming our future. Amid this volatility, Ontario can be a center of stability, a place where the rules are clear, where we maintain a strong social license to operate, and where investors can invest with certainty. That's why some countries, notably Europe, are turning to Canada as a renewed source of security of supply. Canada's role as president of the G7 nation this year gives us a unique opportunity to develop new markets, such as Germany, who value our high commitment to environmental and social standards, our commitment to policy stability, and our ability to supply minerals reliably. It is why Prime Minister Carney has announced an aggressive agenda to invigorate Canada's critical minerals sector by fast-tracking projects of national interest, signing cooperation and substitution agreements with willing provinces and Indigenous governing bodies to uphold both environmental standards and Indigenous consultation, by developing trade and resource corridors and moving to a one project, one review approach. Efficiency, confidence, certainty. This is not unique to Canada. The European Union has done the same through its Critical Raw Materials Act, designating strategic projects to accelerate permitting to a maximum of 27 months for extraction projects and as little as 15 months for minerals recycling or mineral processing. In the United States, a series of executive orders has empowered the National Energy Dominance Council to select projects for immediate approval under a FAST 41 designation. The Council will also direct U.S. agencies to eliminate permitting delays by using tools such as general permitting or permitting by rule. The world is moving fast on critical minerals. Clearly, Ontario is under competitive threat for mining investment and job creation, and risks falling behind without bold action. The province needs a made-in-Ontario solution that responds to this threat, with regulatory efficiency that respects Indigenous rights through a one-project, one-process system with faster timelines, one that is trusted by citizens. If we do not, then mining decisions that impact Ontario jobs will be made in Ottawa, or Brussels, Beijing, or Washington. As the Ontario Mining Association testified earlier, smart regulation is not about more or less regulation. It is about delivering results in the least burdensome, most cost-effective way. Ontario is blessed with geography and geology, but how we forge our future together will be our competitive advantage. Conditions that divide us will only make us less competitive. We are encouraged by the province's recognition of the need for regulatory reform to become more competitive and to optimize the mining permitting and approval process. But at the end of the day, any changes must balance regulatory efficiency, public confidence, Indigenous voices, and investor certainty. We hope you reduce the exorbitant permitting timelines by building in game-changing fixed timelines into regulation. Reduce complexity through a concierge mindset, streamlining low-risk projects, and putting the best minds on the most complex projects. But ultimately, you must uphold all proponents to be accountable for environmental and Indigenous consultation standards so everyone has faith in the province's robust and responsible mining regulations. Nobody should get a free pass. I have 3 recommendations for you to consider, but know this. Critical minerals are essential to protecting our border, our economy, and our environment. Forge the future now. Thank you. Merci. Megwich. Marci.
Thank you. That concludes the testimonies of the witnesses. We will start with the first round of questioning, and we will go this time to the third party who wants to lead.
Thank you,
MPP
Chair.
Sue.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to start with a question for Mr. Golan from Vale. Section 3 of, and I'm sorry for these numbers, but Section 3 of Schedule 5, I'll tell you what it's about. Section 3 of Schedule 5 of Bill 5, it allows the minister to bypass something called the Statutory Powers Procedure Act when dealing with somebody. And the implication is it's some foreign actor that the government wants to restrict by, for example, suspending their prospector's license or denying a lease, things like that. The Statutory Powers Procedure Act, it's something that ensures that you have a fair hearing when a tribunal or some other part of the government makes a decision that affects you. And so we know, Vale has some foreign ownership. Glencore has some foreign ownership. They brought up this point as well. Foreign investment is really important for Canada. It's been important over the history of Canada. Is there a danger here that what I would call the overreach of ministerial power to allow it to bypass the Statutory Powers Procedure Act and taking away the ability of somebody who has their lease taken away or denied, taking away their ability to have a hearing even, is that going to affect the likelihood that foreign investors would come to Canada to invest in Canada? Are you worried about that like Glencore is?
Well, I can't speak on behalf of my friends at Glencore. What I can say is foreign direct investment is essential to Canada and Ontario's mining sector. We simply don't have enough public capital, pension fund capital, or private capital to invest. That said, foreign interference in our natural resources and other elements of our industrial base are a considerable security threat and should be monitored accordingly. That said, everybody is entitled to a fair hearing, and any allegation should be proven in a court of law.
Thank you very much. I'll pass it on to my colleague.
Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone, for coming in. And I'm sure you would like to be somewhere else in your daily life rather than locked in this windowless room talking to us about this horrendous bill. And so first question is to the Friends of Attawapiskat River, is Michel. How far away did you come from today?
Attawapiskat is located on the shores of James Bay. It's about 600 kilometers north of Timmins. We're First Nations fly-in reserve, and we experience the residential schools, the intergenerational trauma. We still live those today. We try to live harmony within the community, but with trauma, there's hardships. There's no housing, poor healthcare system. We have water crisis. The water that's there's a report, 10-year report. Over 123 people died within that 10 years, sitting at the First Nations office. My dad died of cancer. We can have prevention with our health issues, but I never came to both my parents. So I'm speaking on behalf of the people of the community. I tell them, you guys have a voice. Creator gave us voices. We're natural law people. One of the natural laws is honesty. And we have to practice what Creator gave us. That's why I'm here today. That everything's flawed through the provincial government.
And do you feel respected, that the duty to consult has been respected with you making that trek down to Toronto?
We do have a say in our traditional territory, but there was never any free, prior informed consent to the people of Attawapiskat, the surrounding river of Attawapiskat River, Niskanjaga, Wabakwe, Fort Hope, Pewanik, Cache, Fort Albany Moose Factory, and Moose Knee. Nobody told us about this bill.
And our member down the table had suggested a consultation up in Thunder Bay to be at least a little bit closer.
A minute left.
To the land we're speaking about, and it was voted down. How does that make you feel?
The majority of the people live Thunder Bay also. It's like Timmins. There's Ojibwe Cree that live under the Treaty 9 territory. That's 49 communities, and they were not informed. That's what we're saying. Also, it'd be nice to have in Thunder Bay this hearing.
All right, and I think I don't have time for another question, so I'll come back in the next round. Thanks.
Thank you.
Official opposition? Sal? Sal.
Miwe Guajimanawa, thank you for the presentations from Vale Base Metals, Friends of Attawapiskat, but also the Ecojustice Canada.
I thank you for coming here, and I will ask Michel Koostachin from Attawapiskat River, where he comes from. He talked about that when it was opened to have the beers there, and it was close to the community of Attawapiskat. I will ask him how much support did they get, how did things improve at their community of Attawapiskat, for the amount of time that they were there till its closure, when they looked for precious minerals, did things improve when the mine was opened to the time that it closed? When De Beers closed, have things improved in Attawapiskat today?
Abishish Poko Bangi how Monotabwe Chris Abitasuna of Chiminoganan Imo Joe Beheganan Poganda Kagishimo Net Chunyan Sini Egoma Poko Monan Jochianan Kashbaga Abitasuna. So mostly the jobs that received at De Beers were janitorial, custodial. We didn't receive any managerial positions. So we're, like I said, we were discriminated, not because of our work ethics, because of our original people of this land. I sat in a room like this to deal with the conflict that we had with the contractor. We watched a video, and that's it. There was no formal apology. I stood my ground. I know my rights. I know my charter rights. I know my constitutional rights. So, since the settlers, they bring their attitudes to control us, whether it be jobs, and we were paid the minimum. I'm not against the development. Just do things right. Do things right. Treat us right. You know, respect the laws that we have. That's all I'm saying. Mingerso.
Next question I'm going to ask, let me see here, Ecojustice. There was I came from a press conference earlier this morning. There was a woman leader. Her closing remarks were, if this bill continues as is, we will be idle no more. Can you, in your understanding, explain to the committee what that means?
I think that the implications of this bill are very sweeping for environmental protection and First Nations rights. And I think that frustration around the lack of process in the creation of this bill, but also within things like Schedule 9, creates a vacuum, a due process vacuum into which not only unchecked executive power, but other types of forms of resistance will inevitably fill that vacuum. And so that's how I understood those remarks. In the absence of respecting First Nations rights, First Nations will need to find other ways to address those things.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Laura, just because I have about a minute left, I'm just wondering, in opening comments you mentioned, a variety of animals that could be wiped out. One of them was bees. So let's say I'm allergic to bees, I don't like honey. What's the worst that happens if bees die out?
Well, we are already losing many of our native bee species, as well as other pollinating species. And I think you did receive a submission from farmers about the potential consequences of that for people. But we also would lose those ecological relationships. Without pollinators, there are no flowers. I think, we have to understand that we're part of an ecosystem and that many of the things we do value are dependent on that ecosystem being functional. And that means all of the wildlife that form those relationships and form that structure need to be respected.
So I could go hungry?
People could go hungry. There will be impacts to crops if we don't protect wild species.
Thank you.
So they are finished. The time is up. So the official opposition will start. We will go to the government side for their questioning. MPP Darwin.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank all the presenters for being here. My question is for Ms. Bowman. Thank you for your presentation. I listened intently, and I think back to home. Home for me is the Windsor area. We recently had an announcement of a plant called the Next EV electric battery plant, which will support Chrysler vehicles and electrifying our vehicle fleet throughout Ontario, having a homegrown producer instead of imported automobiles. It was probably the fastest construction project I have ever seen. From the time it was brought as a proposal to its actual construction was probably less than 18 months. And so they were only able to achieve that through a white glove treatment. They were given preferential treatment. They were prioritized by the ministry. And ultimately the greater good, as we see it, is more employment and a less polluting vehicle. So I've looked back and I see that Ecojustice appears to be on the surface to be against working with companies like Nexstar in terms of deviating from the existing Endangered Species Act that would meet the needs of both species and the economy. In this case, there are 2 municipal drains that cross the property. So there was evidently going to be some environmental concerns. So I just wanted to understand whether my understanding is wrong, that Ecojustice would not have supported this development. We should not be considering economic factors in how we build, and that we shouldn't be building on otherwise naturalized-ish environments if it affects any species or any part of the natural environment.
I think you're putting a vast number of words in my mouth that I never said and that Ecojustice never said. First of all, I can't speak to the specifics of that project. I don't have a brief on that project, but what I can say is that when you speak of, trying to speed up or prioritize certain projects, we don't have a position on that. That is not what I'm here to talk to you about. When you insinuate that you can't speed up projects without giving Cabinet complete and absolute power, I reject that notion. I reject the notion that we can't protect species and build environmentally friendly projects. That's what we reject. You're the ones who are saying that you have to get rid of the Endangered Species Act, that you have to get rid of the legislative process entirely and hand over power to Cabinet, that you have to be able to exempt projects from any applicable law to speed them up at all. There's no plan to speed up projects in Schedule 9. There's only a power handoff to Cabinet, a complete blank check.
Gallagher Murphy.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and through you, thank you to the presenters here today. Appreciate your comments. And my question will be through to the Ecojustice Canada, to Ms. Bowman. So I wanted to raise about the Species Conservation Act that you spoke about. The proposed Species Conservation Act introduces a registration first approach. for species approvals. And this has been proven effective for other environmental authorizations. And this approach aims to reduce unnecessary delays and costs for critical infrastructure projects. That being said, the Bill 5 significantly strengthens the enforcement of species protection laws by equipping provincial officers with more flexible tools, as well as stronger powers. So, in fact, the legislation includes stronger inspection and investigation powers, allowing officers to inspect project sites without a warrant and issue compliance orders, and serious violators will face hefty fines and imprisonment. So these measures will ensure a zero tolerance for non-compliance. So with those comments being made, my question to you is, when we look at the current system, it's been described to us as being expensive, it's slow, it's complicated. Many communities and proponents have said this. Now, with our proposed changes to the species conservation, we are proposing to put forward a streamlined process, something more predictable, a predictable set of rules that all proponents need to follow as part of this registration first approach. My question to you, Ms. Bowman, why, in the view of your organization, is a regulatory regime where everyone clearly understands the rules they need to follow not a goal that we should all aspire to?
Your proposed regime is to be able to kill species by filing a form, to destroy the last den of the last species by filing a form. And that is not a predictable and clear and efficient process. That is simply getting rid of species at risk.
How much time?
10 seconds.
Okay, well, I don't have much time. I'll come back in the next round. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we move to the third party. This is the second round of questioning. MPP Sue.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question for Ms. Bowman from Ecojustice. One thing that worries me is this idea in Bill 5 that you can pay into a general fund. So payment in lieu of conservation efforts to protect endangered species or to maintain the integrity of ecosystems that endangered species live in. And it's strange to me, because if you lose a species, you lose it forever. And I just don't see how having money in a pot somewhere is going to make up the difference. It just seems like if you want to ignore endangered species, all you have to do is pay into this fund, or maybe attend the right political fundraisers. Can you just tell us a little bit about how you view these payment in lieu schemes in Bill 5?
So Bill 5 has a species conservation fund possibility in it, but you don't even have to pay to kill species under Bill 5. You just have to file a form. That's the default system in the new Bill 5. And this idea that there's going to be a more robust enforcement system that would somehow address that issue, or payments into this conservation fund by somebody to address that issue, you have to protect the habitat in the first place for species to survive and recover. There's no point in a robust enforcement system to prosecute the people who didn't bother filing the form before they bulldozed that last den or killed that last endangered species, if you haven't protected them in the first place.
Thank you. I'm going to pass it to my colleague.
MPP McMahon.
Thank you very much. And I'm just going to continue along with Ecojustice, Laura. And so in your opinion, is the Endangered Species Act working currently? Is it working well?
The current Endangered Species Act has been clawed back over many years by many successive governments. There are serious problems with the implementation of the Endangered Species Act, especially with the existing enforcement powers, which are not used. In 2021, the Auditor General noted that the ministry doesn't conduct inspections, period. So the idea that somehow more inspection powers are going to help when we don't conduct inspections to begin with is quite difficult to imagine being helpful. I think the current act, if it was implemented properly, if inspections were actually conducted, if the exemptions for species were addressed, then it could be a very robust system. It was, in the beginning, a very robust system.
Okay, and I'm sure you've taken a science class in your lifetime, at least one. So this new proposal for the Species Conservation Act protects the species where it sleeps and where it lays its eggs, and nothing else. Does that seem logical to you? Would that support a species thriving and surviving?
No, and species that are in decline are usually in decline because they don't have enough habitat. So if what you do is you reduce the habitat to just their dwelling place, if they even have one, not all species necessarily have a dwelling place, then you are making it impossible for them to feed, to breed, to migrate, to carry out their life functions. You can imagine someone building a structure all around the den of an animal, and then all they have to do to get rid of that den and shoot the animal is file a form online. That is the new Species Conservation Act.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. And then just one final question I think I have time for with Michel again. You mentioned the breathing lands in the Hudson's Bay lowlands, and I think a lot of people don't understand that or really know about it, and I'm wondering if you can take some time to explain to us the breathing lands.
Thank you. I'll let Kerrie speak.
Kerrie.
Thank you, MPP, for the question. So the breathing lands are within the peatlands, the muskeg, in Treaty 9 lands where the Ring of Fire is proposed, and already over 30,000 claims have been staked without the consent of any Indigenous communities. And this region, this is an area where the water flows underground. There's underground rivers where the sturgeon and the many fish species and the millions of migratory birds that visit this area every year live. And this is the region that Schedule 9 would see done away with law. This is the region where a special economic zone has been proposed by the province for this region of the Ring of Fire. It covers some 5,000 square kilometers where no provincial law would apply. Bill 5 is an invasion of constitutional rights, and those constitutional rights are a duty to uphold and protect Indigenous rights. And what we've heard today from my client, Michel Koostachin of the Friends of the Attawapiskat River, is that those rights are not being respected with Bill 5 in its development or how we would see it implemented.
And what are the repercussions of traipsing into the breathing lands? And
we will destroy what Creator gave us. That's the repercussions.
And is there any coming back from that once they've been harmed?
I don't think so. You guys? That should be a question to these guys.
Thank you very much. The time is up. We will move to the official opposition, MPP West.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm going to start with Jeff from Vale. Actually, I was thinking about this when Laura was speaking. She talked about imagining a world without, birds and bats and bees, and in Sudbury, is Vale owns the properties that used to be in Inco in Sudbury. When I was born, the super stack was built. We measured pollution in tons per hour. When I was elected, we finished the Clean Air Project, which captures all the SO2 in the area. As well, I often talk about Sudbury as a template of how we can show the world how mining can be done best, because I know that over the years, the 20 years I was there, the relationship with First Nations and treaty right holders got stronger and better, including the 2 open pit mines that maybe you could expand on in a second. And as well, that health and safety, while working with the union, has improved year after year in the area. I just wondered, Jeff, if you want to talk about the benefits of doing business in the way that, Vale espouses.
No, thank you for the question. No, I think if one only has to look at Sudbury today compared to 20, 30 years ago, to look at the collective commitment made in a community, industry, stakeholders, rights holders, political leadership, to restore nature and allow for continued industrial development. And I think we are extremely proud with the relationships we have with First Nations, with community partnerships, with organized labor, even with opponents. Because I think that, as I said, how we forge a path forward together is our competitive advantage. And we do that by not excluding folks, but by bringing them into projects going forward. We look at the Sudbury Basin as, whether it gets a special designation or not, it is a jewel for this province for the future. And it is an example of industry working together with community, of not only developing responsibly, but taking care of what industry's impacts have been on the environment. So I think we have a built-in, made-in-Ontario example of how mining can be done responsibly and can be a model to the world. I had the fortune this morning of being contacted by officials from the government of Germany who saw some of our work recently in Ottawa when we were talking about what we have done in Sudbury. That is exactly the type of example, and that's why I used it in my remarks, of where the world wants to buy more of not only what Ontario has, but how it does it.
I think building off that, you talked about the nickel, cobalt, copper that comes out of the Vale Base Metals. A lot of the conversation for this in special economic zones tends to circle around the Ring of Fire. If we didn't have the economic or ecological concerns around the Ring of Fire, and we did have decent relationships with First Nations, which were far from having either of those things, does it make sense to invest the amount of money, if we're combating Donald Trump and we're concerned about critical minerals, so that we can open Eagle's Nest, which is going to just put more copper, nickel on the market? Or does it make more sense to invest in existing properties, brownfield sites that could expand, to existing ore bodies, and to invest locally in the short term so that we can capitalize on the importance of critical minerals today?
I would say we need all of the above. I think we live in a growing world that is moving towards the mineralization of our energy systems. We're going to need more of everything. Renewable powers are incredibly mineral intensive. Electric vehicles or zero emission vehicles are incredibly mineral intensive and require much more than we can produce today. Clearly, we need new mines and new projects for the future, but that should not exclude the opportunity to be more efficient and productive with what we have. Brownfield projects or initiatives or operations should definitely be expanded because we've got clean power, we've got existing infrastructure, we've got a talented workforce, and we have social license, and we have engagement with Indigenous right holder. So I think we can start from a position of strength today with existing operations as well as expand for the future. It's not either or.
Thanks, Jeff. And just quickly, either Michel or Kerrie, Michel, when you were speaking, you talked about working at De Beers, and you mentioned the Ontario got 40% of royalty rights. So I've been hearing ever since this bill was tabled about how this is, this bill is going to help bring prosperity to First Nations communities. Can you expand on the prosperity that your communities saw? For example, down the street from Queen's Park, there's a 4-lane road to world-class hospitals. We have condo towers going all over the place. Are these things that your community saw with the expansion of that mine?
When that mining company came, we were promised prosperity, jobs, economic development. So when it happened, we were classified. We were getting low jobs in the mine. Sounds promising. It's good. Hey, I'm going to go work. I worked with 6 companies there, and I try to do prosper. And Attawapiskat, supposed to have a home, but I'm homeless. I raised 2 kids when their mom died. Is that prosperity? I had to get an old house, build it myself. Is that prosperity? I live in Attawapiskat. I wanted to go back, live there. That's home. But what's going to happen now? Companies are coming promising prosperity. I don't believe in it because I'm still suffering from your prosperity. And I don't want to see that. That's why I'm here. Grassroots are being left behind in the dark. The prosperity that you talked about, they don't see it.
I think I have 20 seconds.
Thank you very much. The time is up. We will move to the government side. MPP Koostachin.
Thank you, Chair, and I want to thank all 3 presenters for being here today. Thank you for being here. My question will be for Val from Base Metals. As I heard that you work in different countries like Canada, UK, Brazil, Japan, Indonesia, but you mentioned something about cobalt in Ontario. But as you are aware, most of our cobalt comes from the Congo, right? 75% of it does come from the Congo, where they use child labor and they do environmental damages to the environment. And I want to read a quote from the book Cobalt Red. You've probably read the book yourself. It came out about 2 years ago, approximately. How the blood of the Congo powers our lives. I want you to look at that and listen to that. What is the issue we have with getting our minerals from these other countries? And what can we do here in Canada for our prosperity and for better jobs and everything for the people of Ontario?
Well, as I mentioned, Canada and Ontario are specifically blessed with geology and geography that makes it the envy of the world. We have what the world wants, and with a small population, we don't need that much of it. It's the opportunity to export. Vale Base Metals operates a cobalt refinery in Port Colborne, has done so for more than 100 years, the only one in North America. We brought European delegates through there who were shocked to see that was cobalt from Ontario. That was cobalt from Labrador, processed at some of the lowest carbon, highest purity in the world. We don't have the volume, perhaps, of the DRC, but we have the geology to go get it. Canada is not competitive on the world stage to attract the investment necessary to go get it. Legislation that increases and accelerates permitting for responsible producers should be encouraged so we can get that capital, we can create prosperity, not only for shareholders of the stock itself, but for community at large, Indigenous right holders, and employees. So the impediment in Canada is slow timelines and lack of capital. If we can fix that, we will be the envy of the world.
Thank you. I really appreciate that answer.
MPP Dawi.
Thank you, Chair. And through you, back to Ms. Bowman. I've been hearing a bit of interpretation of some of the sections of the Act. I don't think my friend across the way from Kingston the Islands is correct when he's saying that the Act says we can pay to slay. Effectively, Schedule 2, Section 17, Subsection 3 ends the option to pay into the fund as part of the wind down of the agency that was collecting the fund. So I just wanted to understand better, when you made the comment about we're filing paperwork to kill a species, I wanted to understand better if you're referring to Schedule 10, Part 3, which establishes the permit by rule regime, but conditional on meeting specific requirements that are going to be set out in the regulations. I just wanted to have a better understanding of what you were referring to, if it was that section of the Act or another one.
The new Species Conservation Act sets out the power to, by default, the approval process becomes this registration process. The Act itself does not include any specific requirements. The current Endangered Species Act has a test that has to be met to ensure species conservation and survival before permits are issued. The new Species Conservation Act, you're correct, it does not have that. What it has is a complete discretion to maybe create or maybe not create those requirements. And there is actually, it's not just registration first. That's kind of a mischaracterization to say it's just like other registration first regimes, which have a specific set of conditions that have to be met. This Species Conservation Act does not actually make it clear that you can impose substantive requirements. It has a process that has to be followed. It doesn't include any substantive requirements or clarify that there are powers to impose substantive requirements. All you have is the discretion to use a permitting regime. By default, it is simply a procedural requirement. That is how the new Species Conservation Act operates.
Thank you, Chair.
MPP Vickers.
Chair, my question is to Jeff at Vale Metals. Ontario is proposing a one project, one process model to accelerate permitting timelines. How would streamline approvals impact your ability to bring projects online faster that then could replace imports from other countries that don't have our same standards?
Well, there's two ways in which that can do it. The first and foremost is that concierge mindset where industry or any project proponent has one window through which it deals with government. Out of the 15 years on average that it takes to get a mine built in Ontario, 3 to 5 years of that are spent just running around with paperwork. So imagine that if you just had one account director by which government would still maintain all its standards and protections, but reduces the running around and the paperwork and the overlap and the sitting on desks and in inboxes, you could save 20 to 30% time just like that. That's one way, and time is money. The second is if it can align with the federal government's one project, one approval process, provided that it's done by the legislative framework in Ontario where it's closest to the community and the impact, that too will save time because of the duplication, the overlap, and the time wasted going back and forth with the feds. So both within the service reform within the Ontario government to make it easier for project proponents and to work collaboratively with the federal government, who has publicly stated it wants to achieve the exact same things, you will save more time and attract projects and investment.
Thank you very much. The time is up. The time allotted for this panel is over, and I would like to thank all of you for coming and sharing your precious time and input with us.